All right, good morning. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to our presentation today on Capoeira in physical education. And I just want to also give a big thank you to a big miigwech yonko to Dan and Susan Ninham for inviting me to come today. They have both been mentors and friends to me over the years, and I'm just always grateful to be able to work with them, and I've learned a lot from them as well over the years. Real quick, my name is Nicholas DeShaw. We'll talk more about that in a second. But I want to just take a moment for everyone who's here, if you wouldn't mind just giving a little introduction of yourself, where you're from. If you have a tribal affiliation, if you'd like to share, feel free. But we'll just go through the participants and then we'll get into the rest of the presentation. So whoever would like to start.
I can start. My name is Teresa. I'm from Fond du Lac, and I'm a speech therapist and an early childhood special education teacher. That's what I do for my profession. So I'm just interested in learning a few more things.
Good to have you. Thanks for coming.
Hi, I'm Elaine. I'm the American Indian Community Liaison in Mankato, Minnesota. And excited to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Bonjour, my name is Nain Gatica. I'm from Mexico. I live in Cromwell, and I'm a junior on the education program at Fond du Lac Tribal Community College.
Awesome. Thanks for coming, Nain. Good to have you.
Yeah, miigwech.
Bonjour, my name is Shauna Abed. I am also part of the Fond du Lac Tribal Community College teacher program. I'm one of Dan Ninham's students. I'm from Red Cliff Reservation, and I'm excited for today.
Excellent. Thanks for being here.
Bonjour, my name is Jordan Paulson. I'm a Red Lake enrollee, and I'm also part of Dan Ninham's class, along with Shauna and Nahin. I live here in Cloquet.
Welcome. Good to have you.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Bro, and I'm a first grade teacher at the Oberon Public School. And our students are mostly Native American. And so I'm just waiting to learn more from you.
Great. Thanks for being here.
You too.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, my name's Dan Stauber. I teach elementary phy-ed at Pike Lake in the Proctor District. I met Dan last spring. I'm very interested in learning more.
Great. Thanks for being here. I think that's everybody.
Hinikarigi. I'm Michelle Lemire. I developed a dual language classroom in a public school here on the Winnebago Indian Reservation in Nebraska. I'm also the lead teacher in that classroom, and we use our language and culture to teach everything, including PE. So I'm looking for more ideas all the time.
Oh, so happy to have you. I real quick learning, since living in St. Paul, I've met a fair chunk of Ho-Chunk folks and heard the language, and my goodness, it's such a beautiful language. So I'm happy to hear that's a language effort happening. That's wonderful. Thanks for being here. Elaine or Valerie, I don't think have we heard from you two?
Yes, I'm from Mankato.
Oh, that's right. Thank you, Elaine. And Valerie, I think you jumped in a little after.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm here. I just have a head cold and I was watching the clock. I'm like, oh, it's time. Yeah, I'm the cultural liaison for Malacca Public Schools in central Minnesota. So I'm a kind of a connection between the Native community and the public school.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. Appreciate that. All right. Real quick, let's do my proper introduction. Ninsa bimba tumishidim dijnakaz mikisi and dudame sabukone sakayaganing dunjin danawe bagan a dog wenjabawat ewed Ninsan da eshkabagazibing. Mas também eu sou instrutor surfista, eu sou instrutor do capoeira, do grupo Batuque, e aluno do mestre Versátil e mestre Ami. All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks you all for introducing yourself. I'm Bima Tumishtim in Ojibwe. I am Boys Fort Net Lake. So we'll get some Net Lakers next time, but it's cool. Today we're not going to be talking too much, though, about Ojibwe tradition or culture. We're going to be talking about capoeira, which is an Afro-Brazilian art. And so I gave my introduction in Portuguese, which is the language spoken in Brazil. Today you're going to get a bit of a crash course in some Portuguese vocabulary concerning capoeira. So we're going to get into, we're going to get into this. I can just share my screen. Let's see if I remember how to do that. These days I'm less practiced in in Zoom application. So let's see, where was there it is. Share screen. We'll do this one. Allow Zoom. Yes. Oh, goodness. Okay. Click the box to make. One moment. Apparently, I need to change my settings here. They updated our technology in my school district, so Zoom was not be able to record the contents of your screen until it is. Okay, so everybody, real quick, a bit of a snag here. I'm gonna have to turn off Zoom just for a moment, apparently, to do this. Very, very sorry. So if you all wouldn't mind just jumping back in a moment. Dan, are we okay to do that? Can I just jump back in and rehost? Okay, well, if y'all just bear with me for a moment, I'm going to try this. So it's gonna kick you out. We're gonna jump back in a second, okay? And we'll reattempt this. All right. So give me just one moment. Oh, one thing in the chat real quick. Roll with it. Cool. Okay. It's gonna, so sorry, one moment. I'm gonna jump out of the chat. I think I can do it that way. And where to go? Sorry about this, everybody. There's always some tech things here. Oh, okay, great. Can everyone see my screen now? Yeah, okay, awesome. Great. Okay, should be good. Okay. So okay, great. I'm seeing some thumbs up. Perfect. Thank you, friends. Sorry about that. Okay, so real quick about myself, a little more. I'm a PE teacher at Salem Hills Elementary School in Inver Grove Heights, Minnesota. I use capoeira at my school sometimes. But let's talk a little bit about what capoeira is. So capoeira is an Afro-Brazilian martial art. Within capoeira, music is a very key element. So today we're going to be doing some music, and we're going to be more hearing. I won't make everyone participate too much on that part. But there's also a deep connection between capoeira and other African and Afro diaspora dance fights. Dance fights aren't something that we're as familiar with, I think, in the West, but they're not an uncommon thing throughout parts of West Africa. And other known dance fights within the diaspora are things, Martinique, which is in the Caribbean, has a style of dance fight, so does Trinidad. But we're not going to get too into that today. A little bit about me, my capoeira background. I started capoeira in 2006. A few years after that, I received my apelido. So apelido means nickname in Portuguese, which is surfista. Later on, another mestre kind of updated that to surfista prateado. Surfista means surfer. My hair was quite long, and as you can see, I'm blonde. I looked like a stereotypical surfer. And surfista prateado means silver surfer. Big Marvel Comics fan. Nicknames in capoeira aren't so different than sometimes indigenous communities' nicknames. They're not always flattering, but there's something that are still, they often are still affectionate, and are names that you will often go by, even more so than your given name. So I certainly have friends who know me as Surfista primarily, and I'm not referred to commonly as Nicholas. So I started, like I said, in 2006. I was with another, Capoeira is organized into organizations called groups. I started with a certain group, and later on joined a group called Capoeira Batuque in 2013 under my current teacher, Mestre Versátil. Mestre is Portuguese for master, and his teacher, Mestre Amen. Some of you might be familiar with the movie Only the Strong. It's for a lot of people, it's their introduction to capoeira. It came out in the early 90s. It's kind of corny, but it's fun. Within that movie, in the beginning, Mark Dacascos is the main character. He's an actor in a bunch of stuff. He's in the latest John Wick film as one of the main antagonists. But he was in this movie, and he learns from a guy in Brazil. That guy is Mestre Amen. He's one of my teachers, and also another mentor and good friend. In 2016, I received the rank of monitor, and then instructor in 2021. Monitor is kind of thought of as like an assistant teacher. I was teaching in Duluth for about 8 years under the rank of monitor. Well, up to the time I got monitor, I moved to St. Paul and received the title of instructor. Instructor is a cognate, means instructor, and it's seen as someone who's a full accredited teacher or full qualified teacher, and it's loosely equivalent to the idea of a black belt in other martial arts such as karate or jujitsu. It takes roughly 10 years or more to get that level. There are levels above that, but instructor is when you really kind of it's agreed that you're qualified to really fully teach independently without the supervision of your teacher too directly. So that's a little about my background in capoeira. So who is capoeira for? So capoeira is a very diverse art. In a moment, we're going to see a couple of videos showing capoeira. And because it is so diverse, there's so many ways that you can interact with it. It has a lot of expression to it. There's people who play in a very kind of flowing way in their interactions, and there's also the understanding of combat, of music and language. Those are all part of that, and those can be where you would like to emphasize your skills within capoeira. It's useful in so many contexts. Our PE standards have really shifted, or not shifted, but really embraced rhythmic movement and dance, and gymnastics, and PE really, those standards really align very well with capoeira. So if you ever want to make sure that you're aligning to national or at least Minnesota state standards, capoeira fits very, very well in those, and you certainly can use it for that. There's so many levels to it as well. So, people do it just as a hobby. You can do it as like a club, many colleges have capoeira clubs. It can become a full lifestyle, which is part of why I'm dressed the way I am today. You'll see in a moment when I stand up. This shirt is made by some friends of mine in Japan, actually run a capoeira group. And there's certainly a style and a look to capoeira if it's something that someone wants to really embrace as a full lifestyle. Some people certainly do, but that's definitely not the level you have to participate in. Just like, kind of any movement or physical arts, you can be as casual or as dedicated as you want to be. The adaptability of this art and how high the physicality is makes it really excellent for PE students of all ages. It's something that I think the most athletic kids can really enjoy. And also, if you have kids who are not as athletically inclined, can certainly find something to attach to in capoeira, even in the physical aspects of it. I was not a kid who liked sports growing up, but I loved to play. And capoeira really kind of fit that for me as I got into my teenage years and kind of discovered it and wanted a way to be physically active without necessarily playing sports, though I did play sports too. So I always am very mindful in my education and my teaching of those students who are not as athletically inclined. I want to make sure they have a way to connect to physicality, to connect to athletics in a way that really resonates with them, because my biggest mission and my biggest goal in physical education is to give my students a way to attach to athletics and physicality in a meaningful way for them, so that they can go forward embracing that and embracing a physically active and healthy lifestyle. That's what I would like for them. You know, we hear a lot of horror stories about kids hating exercise and athletics because they had a negative PE experience. So I'm trying very actively to be aware of that and give opportunities to avoid that. Okay, so I want to next here get into some couple videos here. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this one first. Before we watch this is a video made by some friends of mine in California. And it's a very well produced, stylized video that demonstrates some capoeira and some music, but in a more stylized way. And then I'm going to show you a clip of a more typical capoeira game. So, and I'll explain that. Well, let's explain that first, actually. So capoeira, we play capoeira. It's a game of physical exchange between people, between participants, without a winner and a loser. So that's something that's really unique to it. The reason I like to describe it also as a dance fight is because some people have asked me, well, okay, but how do you win? It's a game. And I'm like, well, you don't. Like, if you go to a dance, you know, if you're doing a couples dance, like ballroom dancing or something like that, who wins when you dance? Like, you know, that's not the goal. And you could argue you win if you both have good expression and are both enjoying yourself. So what you're going to see here is several games that are being played by people of different ages and skill levels. You'll see there's a lot of elements of expression, a lot of exchange of movement, kicks and escapes. That's a big element of capoeira. And occasionally too, it gets a little more contact as well, which is also a fun part of capoeira. But yeah, so we'll dissect that a little bit. But so here's a video.
Bendito, louvado seja, meu Deus, a hora que meu Pai nasceu. Bendito, louvado seja, meu Deus, a hora que meu Pai nasceu. Se meu pai é algum vencedor de demanda, ele vende a Luanda pra samba, filhos de Umbanda. Se meu pai é algum vencedor de demanda, ele vende a Luanda pra samba, filhos de Umbanda. Sabe a sereia do mar, Ogum, Iara, Saravá, Ogum, Iara, Saravá, Ogum, Iara, era linda de Ogum, Iara, era linda de Ogum. Bandeira linda de Ogum, está essa lá no Maíta. Içara lá no Maíta, representando o general de Umbanda, povo venceu demanda em qualquer lugar. Representando o general de Umbanda, povo venceu demanda em qualquer lugar. Qualquer lugar, qualquer lugar, qualquer lugar, qualquer
All right, so that was our first video real quick. And that was, if you notice, there was a guy in a white or a red tank top. That's actually my teacher, my master. So that's a very stylized video, very beautifully produced, some excellent skill. I want to show you another video of what a more typical capoeira game or roda looks like here. Quick, so let's check this one out.
Imagine a family just like yours, only halfway around the world.
Okay. Skipping ahead. All right, so that's an example of some capoeira. So let's talk about like what did we just see here? So one thing that I really love about capoeira is just how diverse and inclusive it is. It's something that is open to anybody, any age, any ethnic background, any gender. It's a very inclusive art, and those videos were some examples of some very high level, very skilled capoeiristas. Capoeirista is and that's certainly one part of capoeira, but that's not like if you're just looking at people doing flips and all those crazy trick stuff, it's like, oh man, I don't know, like that's a very small part. The acrobatics are not fundamental or foundational to capoeira at all. They're a fun aspect that some people embrace. I myself am not a particularly acrobatic person. I practice some I could do a few flips at one time, but as I've gotten older and my interests have grown, it's not something that I really practice. So don't worry if you feel at all intimidated by that. Hopefully what you notice is the exchange that's happening between the people who are playing. There are a lot of kicks. They generally don't make contact, though. You might have noticed capoeira is a pretty non-contact art form, and that's one of the reasons I find it really a appropriate and very fun art for students of all ages. Like I have a good friend, another PE teacher who's a black belt in karate. He really has asked his administrators if he could teach karate. He knows very safe ways to teach it to students in his school, but they've said no, because karate has that association as a fighting art, which it is. And even though he could do it safely, it's hard to convince his administrators that it's something that would be okay and safe to do at an elementary level. Capoeira, you don't really have that problem as much. Partially, people just don't know it as well, so you have that advantage. But just also, you can really teach it and present it in a way that's much more about expression, exchange, and emphasizing the dance aspects of it too. The combat aspects are very interesting, but in most physical education settings, that wouldn't be an appropriate thing to teach. So, which is understandable. So before we get into the next part, I gotta go over a little bit of basic Portuguese pronunciation. And actually, you know what? Before I even do that, I want to expand this a little bit. I'm giving you a lot of information. Are there any quick questions about anything we've seen or talked about so far? I just want to give people opportunity to ask anything that you might have seen so far. If not, that's okay too. All right. And again, feel free, throw up your hand, throw up your little hand raise emoji on your chat anytime. I'm happy to help with that. So a little bit of basic Portuguese pronunciation. If you speak Spanish, Portuguese is very, very similar, but if you speak Spanish, I've heard Portuguese, it is not the same language. That being said, it'll give you a good foundation in understanding a lot of this stuff, but there are some important different pronunciations even between Spanish and Portuguese, and certainly between English and Portuguese. So R's at the beginning of words are pronounced as H's. However, in the middle of words, if it's a single R, it's still pronounced like an R, like we would in English. So that's why it's capoeira. There's an R in there instead of capoeira. However, double R, Spanish, that would be your rolled R, but in Portuguese, it's also an H sound. A J is our ZH sound. Those of you who might know some Ojibwe, that J sound, that's so common there. T is a CH sound. A's often have a little tilde over them when you have it written, but generally that's this. Is ow, and that's an I, by the way. EI is A. So we look at capoeira, it has that EI, it makes that A sound like you have in cafe, or again, if you're a learner or speaker of Ojibwe and the double vowel system, that single E in there is that A sound. So this is something you can reference back to if you need to look at the recording again later. And then you can say some Portuguese words and sound super fancy. So that being said, we're going to go over a couple basic terms. And I know this looks like a lot, and I do not expect everyone to remember this at all, but I just want you to have this also as a reference for yourself if it's something that you want to try to go forward with in your teaching, and just so you can have a little bit of a vocabulary. Okay, so of course, capoeira, the name of the art, I remember first getting into capoeira, 2005, 2006 when I really started training. 2005 is when I probably first heard about it, and I had no idea how to pronounce this word. So right here is a rough pronunciation, capoeira. All right, more American accent, capoeira is how you might say that, and that's fine. If that's how you can say it, that's fine. If I'm going to give you kind of more the Brazilian Portuguese pronunciation. If it's not sounds that you can say easily, don't worry about it too much. It's fine to say it with your accent, however you speak. I'm going to try to give you both ways. Next one is Jinga. You might have noticed this. I'm going to be showing these in a moment. Jinga is our basic swing stance. Most martial arts, or really, I'd probably try not to speak too broadly, but I would generally say every martial art, certainly that I'm aware of, has a stance, a way that you begin and the way that you're expected to stand. In capoeira, it's a moving stance. There are other arts that have moving stances. You think a lot of times of like karate or kung fu, they have these very rigid stances, which look super cool. There's a lot of great reasons to do that. But you also look at something like boxing. They're always, bouncing. Okay, capoeira is more that aspect. Fun fact too, modern boxing is also largely African diaspora derived, but that's another story. Meia lua de frente, or meia lua de French, an inward crescent kick. I will be demonstrating all of these, don't worry too much. This word right here might be throwing you for a loop. Queixada de frente. Oh, I forgot to write that. X is sh, an SH sound. Queixada de frente, that's an outward crescent kick. Cocarinha. That NH is a ny sound. That's a low crouching escape. Au, like werewolves in London. I always make that joke and sometimes people laugh. As long as anyone laughs, I will keep making that joke. That's a cartwheel. Though interestingly, in wider Brazilian society, usually they call cartwheels estrelas, which means a star. But in capoeira context, it's au. Rolê, so you have that R there, making an H sound. Rolê is a basic escape from a half squat. It means roll, just like it's spelled, but it's pronounced rolê in Portuguese. And then roda. Roda is the game of capoeira. Those are the videos we were watching. The exchange people are having in there is a roda. Tracking back to those videos for a second. That first video is called Voices for Ogum. That song, we're going to talk about music in a few minutes here, is kind of a mixture of Portuguese and Yoruba. Yoruba is an African language, West African language, that's been very well preserved actually in a lot of, certainly in Brazil and African diaspora societies. Other parts of the African diaspora in the Americas also have preserved either some phrases or words of Yoruba. Others have it to an almost conversational level. I don't know that it's a functional language anywhere in the Americas, but it's still a very commonly spoken language in West Africa. It's one of the most widely spoken, I believe, in Nigeria, certainly. Yoruba, if you hear it spoken in Africa, has a lot of the same words that you'll hear in capoeira and in Afro-Brazilian culture as well, in their music and their spiritual dances and things like that. That's another aspect you can certainly dive into if you want to touch on that. If you want to include an element of culture and social studies, there's a lot to dive into there that's very, very interesting. But I won't get too far into that unless people ask for it, but we'll do that in a moment. Okay, let's get into some of the instruments. So there are, we're going to talk about 4 of the main instruments. There are some other minor instruments, but they're not as common, so we're not going to worry about them today. You might have seen these a little bit in the videos. There's a berimbau, which is a long bow-shaped instrument, a pandeiro, which is just a tambourine, an atabaque, which is a conga-like instrument, it's a hand drum, and an agogo, which is a double bell. Let me see where we're at here. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna show all these. I'm gonna take us off of this for a second. So I'm gonna stop the screen share for a moment. And I'm going to put this back on full screen. All right, cool. Okay, so all right, so I'm going to show each of these instruments. These are not things that are required for you to have if you ever want to try to teach capoeira in your school. But if you can get them, they certainly add a really interesting aspect that can be a lot of fun for kids. And it can be an interesting way to even do cross-curricular activities if you want to try to dive in with your music program or what have you. We're going to start off with the berimbau. Berimbau is the most important instrument of capoeira. And like I mentioned, it's long and bow shapes. I keep them in this bag. It's funny because sometimes I'll carry this bag around. People ask me like, is that a fishing pole? Is that a gun? I'm like, no, it's an instrument. So here is a berimbau. And you need to assemble it actually. Let me just quick expand this. I want to be able to see everybody just in case there are questions here or anything like that. So this is a berimbau. The way it's strung, and I like the term bow-like because it actually is strung very much like a bow. If we have any archers or bow hunters in here, if you've ever worked with a wood bow or traditional bow, this is how you assemble them as well. There's a fair chance this actually derives from a bow at some point. It's a very, very old instrument. It's played throughout West Africa, even in the Gullah country, the Gullah Gila people in the Carolinas, that area, they have this instrument as well. Very interesting history there. Well, the way it's strung, bend it, I have to bend it across my knee. Some people like to use a wall. I tie this. This, by the way, this wire that I use to string it is a kind of piano wire. Historically, however, though, these were made from the insides of car tires. If you ever have seen a tire all shredded up, there's these like kind of metal wires in there that helped it to keep its strength. So people would use that, which is really fascinating to me. It's just an example of like, people adapting what they had to make the instruments they could. Okay, that's pretty good. Test that. Tap it, make sure that's nice and in place, looks good. All right, so then that's the first part of it. The next part of it is right here, the board, called the cabasa. Okay. That goes on the bottom right here. Ceiling's a little low for a beginner bow, but that's okay. Okay, so you pinch the string, pull that up, and let's see how it sounds. All right. Yeah, maybe up a little more than that. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so that's that first part. Now the last couple bits here are a stick. This is called a baqueta. There are certain kinds of wood you can use to make this. Honestly, though, you can just go to Menards and get a dowel. It works fine. And then you have here cachichi. This is an instrument you might see in throughout a lot of Latin American music. There are different sizes, but they all have this like kind of fake aspect to it. I'm gonna have to sit down to play it just because my ceiling isn't quite high enough right now. So you hold it. It's a bit awkward how you hold it. It takes some getting used to. But you hold it here. You have your pinky under the string here. Your middle two fingers are actually the main ones holding it. Your other hand, of course, has this and this, and your finger and thumb actually also need dobrao. So dobrao. I mean, it's an old Brazilian coin from a currency that's no longer in use. But they used to have these big coins that they would use. You can just use a rock though, or even a washer. I've seen people use. That's fine. And this is used to make higher and lower notes on the berimbau. So here's our lower open note. Okay. And then our higher note, I used to by pushing the dobrao against the wire. Higher note. Then there's a buzz tone. Touching it lightly against the wire here. The arame is the term. And then this is the most common rhythm you'll hear in capoeira. This is called salbento grande, and it sounds like this. So that's the most common one you'll hear, but you can hear a lot of other ones, like there's a slower Angola. There's also regional. And then there's some that are just kind of fun that people like to do. Sometimes this is referred to as Bebe Fanta Laranja, which means drink orange Fanta. I don't know. It's fun. Orange Fanta. Who doesn't love it? So that's this one. And then as people get more experienced in berimbau playing, there's like all kinds of like different variations. You can do improvisations. So. So those are some of the some improvisations you might hear that are commonly played. That's a berimbau. Okay. Again, not something that's required for you to teach capoeira in your school or wherever you are teaching, but if you can, then why not? Lots of great tutorials online on how to play that as well. Let's move on to the next instrument. This is a atabaki. Atabaki. This is actually technically not an atabaki. An atabaki is shaped differently. This is the conga. See it here. And this is a common drum. Your school music program might have one of these, or a similar hand drum. And your most basic capoeira rhythm, tilt this a little so we can see it. Okay, is this right here. So to play that Most simply, it's now I like that one a lot because it's the most common, it's not too hard, it's something that's pretty approachable whether you have a music background or not. But it's one of many, like just like on the beat and bow, there's other rhythms you can play. There's even a more simple one. Okay, and then you can get more complicated, like there's one Bahaventu, which is let's see. Hold on, it's a little rough. Saves a little bit. Another similar African derived dance fight is makulele that has its own rhythm, which is and then there's others as well. So that's atabaki. That's kind of, I would argue, probably the second most important instrument in capoeira. The next one we're gonna do is pandeiro. Pandero in Spanish, same instrument. It's a tambourine. Yeah. However, it's a tambourine with a skin on it. Okay, you can't have. There's those fun ones that are just kind of rings with the jingles on them, which those are fun, but they won't work for capoeira. You have to have one with the skin on it. It's more of a drum. Your basic rhythm is this. This one probably needs to be tightened a little bit, but that's your basic rhythm. Edge, middle, edge, edge, middle. Okay. Again, something that's pretty approachable. The more standard basic rhythm, though, has another element it goes like this. So all I'm doing there is I'm adding this little part here. That's the same as that buzz sound on the berimbau. And I'm using my other hand to move it. Okay, this is an instrument, believe it or not, played with both hands. It doesn't always appear that way. But again, it looks like this. So watch, I'm holding my hand still and I go to move that. That keeps this hand from getting tired. If you're only moving this hand, it gets really tired, it cramps up, and you might have to be playing this thing for a while. So you don't want to have that happen. You want to try to pace yourself. So that's basic pandeiro. Last one, agogo. Agogo, this is an agogo. Sometimes you'll see these made out of Brazil nut rinds, which is cool. But these are a relatively common percussion instrument. You know, any kind of full percussion sets that you have, if you go to like a high school band program, it's going to have one of these. They're relatively easy to find. But this is a more minor instrument. It's not required in capoeira. The main instrument that's required, if you want to do the instruments, again, you don't have to. But the berimbau is the most important one. However, if you're like, you know what, I got a tambourine and a drum, cool. You know, that's fine. The basic thing is to, if you want to do this part of it, is just get kids aware and experiencing other kinds of music. That's my opinion. We're not trying to give them a full in-depth, you know, professional level capoeira experience necessarily, if you don't have that background, but just to put them as something like this is something they can be aware of. This is played just like this. Oops. Pretty straightforward. High, low, high, high, low, high. And you do little improvisations in between. As long as you come back to that basic rhythm. So, you know, as long as you kind of keep it on beat and go back to that basic rhythm. That's this one. This one can be loud, so you have to make sure it's not louder than the other instruments, because like I said, it's a more minor instrument in the bateria or orchestra of instruments. Bateria or orchestra are the terms in capoeira for the instruments being played. All right, so that's the musical aspect. Oh, that's almost all the musical aspect. One last, this is okay. This maybe is the most important instrument actually. And that is your hands. You might have noticed in those videos, the people who were not playing instruments or were not playing, actually physically playing, were clapping and singing. This is a really, really fun aspect of capoeira that is something that invites and brings everybody in. You can think of even at like I'm trying to think of a good example. So like a hand drum, for example, some of us are probably a little more familiar with that. Hand drum songs, you might have one or a couple drummers, and you might have everyone else singing around. Similar idea. It's a way that brings people in, and we all can participate in the music. The basic clap of capoeira is this. So just 1, 2, 3. However, the more technically accurate clap is this right here. Well, hold on. Now I got to think of it for a second. Think of these other instruments. So we got that kind of quieter clap in there. That's another one. Yeah. So those are one thing that everybody can be doing if they're not playing an instrument or playing capoeira, they can be there. And then the last one is there's somebody singing. So capoeira music is call and response. So there will be a lead person singing, and then everyone else will respond. And again, we heard that in some of the videos that we just saw, where you'd have a lead musician. Usually there's someone who's on the berimbau, and they will sing a song. So like a really simple song is "Oh sim sim sim, oh no no no," which is "Oh yes yes yes, oh no no no." The lead person would sing "Oh si si si, oh no no no," and then everyone would respond as an echo. "Oh si si si, oh no no no, oh si si si, oh no no no, oh si si si, oh no no no." So that would be your basic there. So, okay. I know, crash course and a lot of stuff there. Any questions about any of that? Cool. All right, let's get into it.
I have a question.
Sure, please.
So you talked about like the instruments, you talked about the singing, and then there's movement with it.
Yes, that's the next thing we're going to dive into.
And that's the next thing that we're going to go into. So is it kind of initiated by the singing and then the movement comes into it, or is it all something that begins together?
So good question, very good question. If you ever see a capoeira roda being played, it'll start usually with people singing, and then the person holding the berimbau will oftentimes they'll be playing and they'll dip the berimbau to dip it like this to indicate, okay, now it's time to play. And that will invite two people to come, and they'll crouch at the foot of the berimbau. Again, they'll dip the berimbau or nod. They will do a cartwheel into the beginning of the circle and begin to play. And that's what we again saw in those videos. So I'm just trying to be mindful of our time. So I wanted to get right into this last part here. So this is the part I want to end with this, or have this towards the end, because I want this, that usually is something that people will remember best if it's a little towards the end. So let's get into some of the movements. This is probably going to be the main thing that you do teaching. So things you need. First of all, I'm wearing my traditional capoeira pants here. These are called abadá. This is my cord. In our group, this is a symbol of rank. This shows that I'm an instructor. There are many different groups have different ones. Don't worry too much about it, but that's what I'm wearing, and you'll commonly see in capoeira. Things you need in capoeira to teach movement are your students and a chair or cones, or just your students. You don't need any of that if you don't want it. Okay, let's talk about some of the basics. All right, so we went over some of the terms earlier. I'm going to show them to you. The first one we did was called jinga. To do jinga, you start here, feet wide apart. Then 1 foot back. You'll notice here, my heel is up. It's like a lunge, but not quite as low. I'm still pretty high up. Back to the middle, and then opposite. Forward and back. Forward and back. Forward and back. Okay, so your arms during this, your arms don't just hang. Okay, one arm comes up, switch, other arm. So whatever leg is back, that same arm comes up over your face. Okay, this arm hangs or is kind of by your side for a lot of reasons, but it's ideally to protect your side from kicks. Okay, so that's Jenga. Everything you do starts with this. So let's get into our first kick. First kick I mentioned is meia lua de frente. Meia lua de frente looks like this. From the back, up, crescent, landing back again. And then I switch up, crescent kick, in the back. Boom. And then you can do this from Jenga. The way I like to do this is I'll do what I just did, have everyone just do it from like standing still. Okay, everyone standing still. All right, ready? Up, crescent, meia lua de frente, back. Okay, one other side. Up, crescent, meia lua de frente, back. And then I tried to get it to them to do it from a moving Jenga. So I'll count, often I count Portuguese, which is 1, 2, 3, but I can count English too. Or Ho-Chunk or Ojibwe, it's all good. So we'll just do English for now. 1, 2, 3. This foot's back. Up and around, boom. And try to get right into the movement again. 1, 2, 3. Up, whoosh. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Bam. Okay, that's again meia lua de frente. Now we're going to learn queixada de frente. It's just the opposite. This was an inward crescent kick. Now we're going to do an outward crescent kick. So here again from the back, outward, back. Here and back. 1, 2, 3. So I'm here, back, here, back. Again, starting from still and then trying to get into it from a moving Jenga stance. Okay, so those are 2 basic kicks. Let's learn some escapes. In capoeira, generally there's not contact. Certainly if you're teaching in a school setting, it's almost always best to keep it no contact. So kicks go over the person. They can come close to them, but they shouldn't necessarily touch them. Okay, so our first escape is called cocarinha. Cocarinha. Cocarinha looks like this. Low to the ground, arm up here over my head. This hand is flat. Okay, this is a great one. If you really want to make your students work hard and like really use their quads, this is a great one to do. I will even do it where you can count 2, 3. This one's back, forward. So because this one's back, I'm going to go down on this side. You guys might be a little more flexible than me. It's cold in winter. My muscles are a little tight. You can get a little lower. That's good. Your students probably be able to. Other side, 1, 2, 3 here. And low. This arm has to be up. Sometimes you'll have kids come here or whatever, and it's like, no, you want your arm up here because a kick is passing over your head. So you want that to be there just in case. If you want to turn this into a really fun but also somewhat challenging exercise, you just do like, okay, on my clap. So 1, so you just have them Jenga, and then you go, and they just have to go down and up. Keep them going. So that's cocarinha. That's a couple ways you can do it. The last one we're going to do is called rolê. Rolê is, it means roll. So again, it's kind of cocarinha, but this time my hand is out here and this leg is here. Leg reach to the side, and I go over it like that in a rolling motion. Again, other side here, out, go. You can even approach this as a combination of cocarinha rolê. So you can have kids come down, hand down, leg out, reach there. All right. Last one, au, cartwheel. Don't be too intimidated if you're like, I don't know if I can do a cartwheel. It's okay. We're not trying to be Suni Lee here. You don't need to do a perfect gymnastics cartwheel. That's actually not a very good cartwheel in capoeira. There's a lot of acceptable ways to do au or cartwheel. You of course can do the big extended legs one. That's fine if you want to do that. But you can also be right here. Little hop. So a couple ways you can do this with students. Couple lessons. Of course, you can just teach them those movements. That's fine. And then, if you want to, hence the chair that I have today. And by the way, You might notice I'm barefoot. Traditionally, this is one of the, well, traditional is debatable, but this is one of the ways that we train. I like to be barefoot to do capoeira. You can do it in shoes, it doesn't matter. But don't do it in just socks because you'll slip and we don't need that. Okay, you can use a chair. I'll put it over here so it's better. And just doing your kicks over your chair. If you're a PE teacher, cones work great for this as well. Boom. And this is just to get them used to having a target to pass over. You can even, if you use cones, you can have a student on either side. And after one student kicks, then the student on the other side does their kick. That's a great exercise. Once they're comfortable with that, when you're comfortable too, that's important. When they're comfortable with that, when they've learned these movements, you can take this away and give them an opportunity to do a with a partner. So Jenga, count to 3, 1, 2, 3, and then one person, this will be predetermined. They'll say, okay, you're partner A, you're partner B. Partner A will do a kick, partner B will do coquille. Okay, and either pull away or away, back to standing. Back to, okay. All right. Okay. So those are all of the basic movements I want to go over with you guys today. I want to show you one last thing, one or two last things maybe. Try to be mindful of our time. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I want to do there. Okay. Yep. Just do a share screen again. Oh, where'd it go? Shoot. Okay, one sec. I gotta find. Okay. I gotta find where I put my. Here it is. It's hard to go back and forth between these things. All right, let's talk a little bit about safety here. Hide this. So when you do this, it's really important you have lots of personal space. You wouldn't want to do this in like a classroom with a bunch of desks, right? You also have to be mindful of how fast you're going with this. Just really emphasize that to your students. And especially with working with partners, you need to watch your head. That's why I really emphasize keeping your hand up to protect your head, but also making sure you're going slow and controlled enough that you know you're not going to accidentally bump into them. Okay. And you really have to be aware of those around you. It's not just your partner. If it's you, your partner, and a class of 30 other kids, you need to be aware of like, okay, well, where are the other partners in here? Where are the other people? Because if they have their hand on the ground, I don't want to accidentally step on their hand. That's definitely something that's happened to me in my years of capoeira training. I've done it to other people on accident. It's no fun. So just make sure that you have a lot of room. That's the biggest thing. If there's any element of this, like you personally don't feel comfortable with, or a student doesn't feel comfortable with, it's fine. It's fine. It's always okay to modify or just even skip it. Like do the parts that you feel okay with. Even if it's just like, you know what, I'm just going to do Jenga and basic kicks like in lines as like a warm up. Cool, whatever. It's fine. You don't need to dive into this as like a pro. And if you've been teaching PE for a while, you know that, hey, we get new things all the time and we're given no time to figure out how to do them. And then we have to teach them. And whatever level that is, it's okay because we're exposing the students to something new and you can always improve and learn more revisiting something later on too. So it's all right if there's anything that we don't feel super comfortable with to skip or modify it. Materials, like I said, cones and chairs. Capoeira music is really good too. Just have that playing. Again, if you're in a PE setting, often we play music. Just do this music instead. There's lots of it on Spotify, lots of it on YouTube. There's lots of good options. So here's a good example of kind of what a lesson might look like. If I'm assuming you have a 30-minute PE period, that's pretty common. You can introduce capoeira, teaching Jenga, and then maybe Jenga with a partner. So I showed you that Jenga, that swaying stance. You can do that with each other. Then you get into some basic kicks and escapes, practicing kicks on a cone, and then finally with a partner, one partner kicks, one partner escapes, and then you switch the jobs that you're doing for your closing activity. So a pretty straightforward lesson. You can make it as long or short as you want. YouTube has some excellent tutorials. All you need to do is search Capoeira tutorials. The best, of course, is to seek out a qualified teacher who can really dive deep into it. I've had a guest Capoeira instructor in my school who was such a talented children's teacher. I wanted to bring him in. Even though I knew what I was doing, he was so good. I wanted to have him come. And it's fun for the kids to have guests. Like I mentioned, it's okay to go slow or modify it. Capoeira is done by people who are paraplegic, people who have other disabilities even. So it's always acceptable to modify as needed. Okay, and we only have a few minutes left, I know, but are there any questions, everybody? Just want to give us a little bit of time to maybe ask. Cool. Okay, no problem.
Hey,
oh yeah.
I have a, do you have any video of your kids doing this?
I don't personally. There are some out there I know on YouTube and probably other places as well. But
Okay.
no, I don't have that. Geez, sorry, I'm messing with the view. I shouldn't have done that.
And I know some schools don't want you to share it in that, but you know,
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
We do some videos and share it to our social media, and it's pretty neat. But I just went and Googled what you had said, and there's Capoeira dance for beginners, and it's incredible. It's really neat stuff.
And I think I know who does that one, and she was in one of these videos. Is it a female instructor?
Yeah.
And now, yeah, she's excellent. Jessica is her name, or Paval in Capoeira. Always highly recommend her. She's a very, very qualified teacher. And she presents it in a very approachable way. So yeah, her videos are excellent.
Perfect.
Yeah. Anyone else about anything we covered, or anything along those lines? All right, no problem. All right, friends, I know that was sorry, friends, I'm in teacher mode all the time. But everybody, thank you so much for coming, and I appreciate y'all being here.